All right, welcome back. So we've got a character now, and we've got a goal. The goals can go to different levels, but we've got a fantastic looking character here with a really detailed texture, and that makes that my goal look a little bit pale in comparison. So what I'd like to look at today is how can we change this goal and bring in some of our own models rather than using the kind of primitives that are built into Godot, which are fine for a lot of purposes, but we have a giant world of 3D out there, so let's have a look at that. Now, there's a number of different formats that are available for you in bringing 3D models into Godot. And if you go to the documentation here, you can have a look there. The recommended file is a fairly new one, a GLTF 2.0. Both the GLTF or the GLB, they're basically the same. There, and this is their recommended one, although you may not find as many out there, and there's a little extra step if you want. GLTFs are very powerful because they can support animations and bone structures and skeletons for moving and altering 3D models, so they're great. You can also bring in Blender. Basically, there's a little Blender plugin that if you're using Blender 3, we'll just create a GLTF on the fly for you and be able to move that. DAE is an older one, but fully supported. And one of my favorites here is the OBJ, the object, plus a material file. These are fully supported. They're pretty limited. You can't have animations, as I say, pivots, skeletons, animations, and a lot of high-end stuff. But at the beginning, they're going to work very much like the meshes you're used to. And then there's a proprietary FBX format, which again requires a plugin little thing. I'm going to recommend that you stick with probably the OBJ, DAE, or the GLTF at the beginning. And I'll show you the two different ways to bring these in. So on your Moodle course, I've given you loads of links to 2D or 3D model sites. And you can find those on Kenny. You can find those all over the place. Here, I'll go to Moodle just to show you. There's some great models here, but free 3D. There's Smithsonian Open Access. They've taken and digitized a number of their graphics. Kenny's got a ton of great 3D stuff out there. And then there's Open Game Art. Keeping in mind that there's a lot of pay access to a number of these models, but there's a giant collection of free ones here as well. So once you've found something, and say free 3D here, I think I've already downloaded it so that I can find this. But this is a nice site, and even though you say free 3D, you'll see there's a lot of pay here if you're going to be commercially producing these here. But you can also sort them by the different types. So I could say object models, OBJ files, and then I can search for something like, I don't know, let's go a trophy. And you'll be able to find loads of different ones. There's a nice donut. Where's my trophy coming up? There we go. A whole bunch of trophies here. And I think I found this one, this Champions League trophy, but you could find a bunch of any trophy that you like to be able to use. And just download it. Now, in this case here, I've got a model in a folder. And here's that Champion League's trophy object. Now there's the OBJ file. You'll often find with an object file, pictures will come along with them. So you don't necessarily know which ones are required. So I like to grab them all. So I'm going to grab all 4 of these files, the object file, and then we'll often have what's called an MTL, a material file, which stretches over top of it. This may be working or this may just be a plain file. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to copy these and then bring them into my tutorial folder here, my game. And as I start to get more and more files, I'm going to recommend keeping them organized. I already have a materials file, so I'm going to make a new folder here called models that'll let me bring my 3D models in and just keep them nice and neat. And I'm going to paste in that one there. so that when I go back into Godot, it'll bring those in a new folder called models. There we go. There's my models, and there is the champions.object. So this behaves basically exactly like a mesh. So on my goal, here is the mesh that I created, but I can, if I want, just grab that champions object, and I'm going to drag it over into the mesh here. And you can see, oh, that's got a bit of a floor with it, so that's not ideal. But you can see here that we've got this model here, and if I were to play my game, oh, not in the goal, sorry. If I were to go back to level 1, you'll see level 1, you'll see that that has appeared. Now this is not an ideal model, and I can't edit it within Godot, but if I were to play the game, you'll see that we'll have this giant spinning mesh here now. Again, not ideal because whoever made this model included a giant floor with it, but it still works the same, and I am obviously going to choose a different model than that one. But you can see we've brought it in there. So I don't like that because of the floor. Obviously, get a better model than that. So let's look at the other way of doing things. So on my goal, I have another model, which is grabbed from Kenny, and he had a giant collection of food on his. So Kenny gave me a bunch of GLTF formats here, and you've got cans, open, frapple, meat patties, cooking, cabbage, ketchup, a whole little collection here. And if I remember, there was a birthday cake somewhere here. Cake birthday. There we go. And this is that GLB file, and I'm going to copy this one and put it also in my folder, in that models folder, and I'll just paste that one there. There we go, and we get this birthday cake. Now, a GLB or a GLTF file is usually all self-contained, so it's all together and is a little larger one, but it can have lots of amazing features put into it. And as such, it's a little more elaborate. It's not just the mesh there. So with a GLTF, where's that? There's my birthday cake here, or GLB. We don't drag it on top of the mesh. You can see it won't allow me to just replace the mesh. It actually comes in as a scene of its own. So I can drag the birthday cake directly up into my tree here as a child of goal. And I'm just going to hide the mesh completely there. And you can see it comes as its own little self-contained package. It's got the textures on it, it's got the model, everything is in one go, and it opens up, brings it in as its own scene like so. So you can replace the mesh with a GLTF just like that. And if I were to go switch back to, let's save this scene and play that now, you'll be able to see that we have the cake just appears just like that in the goal, and now you've brought in your GLTF. And if it had an animation built into it or something like that, that would play. For instance, you know, maybe the designer when they made it had like flickering candles or something like that. That would play as part of the animation in the 3D file that you had created. But there are two different ways of bringing in some better models, and now you've got the world out there. You could also create your own in Blender, and if you're interested in bringing in a Blender file, talk to me about how to set that up so that you can easily integrate Blender files right into your Godot game.